Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice break. So you had a question or a comment here? Just pass the mic over.
Hi.
Hi.
Something quite amazing just happened.
Okay.
I went to go to get a coffee.
All right.
And this is my first seminar. So there is an element of resistance in whether I do really believe in the ability for someone to go into a trance, although
Sure.
it's getting lower and lower and lower, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get rid of the analytical side. I just sat down next to Alexander, just happens to be at the side of me here, just because I didn't want to stand in the queue for another 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And we started chatting. And I started explaining to him how difficult it has been for me to sleep this last couple of nights. I usually put my head on the pillow and I'm out like a light. Sleeping's not a problem usually for me, yeah? But these last few nights it has been, so there's something going on, yeah? And then all of a sudden he said to me, close your eyes. And the rest is history. Thank you.
Just hang in there for a second. Would you just come over here on this side and then just take Eric's place? And Eric, we'll just have you jump in and out as the random drifters come in. We're working on a binary system, on or off. Okay. Thank you for that. That was a very powerful moment, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, guys. I'd like you to select someone else in your group, someone you'll be working with for the next few rounds. As soon as you've selected them, please look this way. So, what we're going to start doing now, we're going into the drilling cycle. We've got a lot of skills now. There's one last set of skills that we'll be talking about in due course, but before that, I want to put everything together into a nice package so that the new stuff can just be going around that. Make sense? So let's go to some conversation hypnosis training in terms of the skill pieces. What I want you to do the first time around is very simple. For literally 20 seconds, have a chit-chat with the other person, and they'll have chit-chat back with you. So I'm going to give you 40 seconds. I won't call time, because you'll both be talking as in a normal conversation. Does that make sense to you guys? All right, guys, off you go. Okay, that should be easy to do, right? You've been doing this most of your lives, yes? Of course, you're getting very comfortable with each other. The next thing is, this is where it gets interesting. I want you to start off with that chit-chat, the same kind of vibe you had now. Somewhere in that process, I'd like for you to turn on your H+. Either of the 3 stars that you know, right? Turn your H+. And then carry on having a chat, but it'll now be an H chat rather than a chit chat. Does that make sense to you guys? So, whoever put their hand up first, who's going to be taking the first round as a hypnotist, you're going to get, I'll come to you in a second, you're going to get about 40 seconds for this. You're not going to have very long, 1 minute and 20 seconds altogether. So really spend a little bit of time with chit-chat. Then as soon as you can get into your H+, get into your H chat afterwards, just to get that sense of distinction and feeling a difference between normal conversation and a hypnotic conversation. Do you understand the difference? Yes? Yeah, have a microphone here, please. You done? Okay, that's fine. All right, guys, you all understand what you're doing? The person who had their arm up first will be the first hypnotist. The interesting part will be how the conversation flows after you've switched. Make sense? Off you go. How was that? Did you find that interesting? How do you cope with going from normal conversation to the hypnotic conversation as being the hypnotist? What happened? Stand up.
I actually found that it was a little bit more difficult to speak when I just switched into H+.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all of a sudden took more effort to say things.
Good. Well done. What else you guys noticed? Stand up.
Even though I'm invisible, what I noticed was that I slowed down and was more observant immediately, those 2 things. And neither of them exists in reality. So it's good.
Good, excellent. Just pass it forward and we'll come to you in a second. Actually, you'll go first and then you stand up after. Go.
I found it that it's very nice I'm saying less and slower, but I can see that he wants more of it. So he's asking with his eyes more.
So let me ask you this, in terms of summary so far, there's not a huge problem switching rhythms, is there? Now, in some conversations, you have to slow down into it a little bit more gradually and ease into it. I've given you less time for this. But overall, people kind of naturally respond to your change in rhythm, don't they? Right? As long as you don't make it too crazy, you should be okay, right? So go ahead.
Now, I just noticed that when I changed and went into H+, Sue was in the middle of saying something, and suddenly her eyes sort of popped open, and she changed her tone,
Yeah.
and she actually changed what she was going to say into a happier memory.
Yeah.
And it was really lovely. It was
Because people respond to each other. Remember these little sub-communications, these little submarine pings that we talked about, right? When your H+ gets turned on, the whole nature of your conversation changes. Now, it won't always be perfect. It won't always be as simple as this, right? You understand that? But at least you'll know how to gradually move from one to the other while setting the right atmosphere up, right? Go ahead.
Okay. When I turn on H+, my waves came and I start to move. I start to speak in waves.
Perfect.
Just wave, pause, wave, pause,
Perfect.
wave, pause, like that.
Beautiful. I'm liking what I'm hearing. Okay, guys, let's hand the mics back. We'll do more in a second. Next exercise. Let's take a little bit longer on this one. Let's give you a minute apiece. There we go. We're going to start off with the same chit chat, H+, and then hypnotic chat sort of thing. The same sort of thing, right? Once you get into your hypnotic chat, I want you to start collecting yeses, but the kind of yeses I want for now are crude yeses. The reason I call them crude ones is because you're actually looking for some kind of conscious response. A yes, I agree with you, an actual yeah, so there's an actual response that they know they've given to you. Does that make sense? Collect this. No? Who said no? Do you have a question, or is that? Do you want to pass the mic over there? Sure. So you don't understand what the crude ones are, is that what you're saying? Okay. So the crude ones will be easier to distinguish from the subtle ones. The crude ones is when I'm actually looking for a response. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yes? Let me just double check. You got exactly what I mean, right? Right? Yes. You're not missing it, right? You understand what I mean, right?
Yes, I understand.
You haven't missed the point, correct? Good. So you do understand exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Have I said it enough yet, yes? Or should I keep going? That's what I mean. Say again? Yeah, stay with the same partners, because we're going to go through a couple of fast-paced rounds, and then we'll switch around a bit again. Okay? Yeah? Swap roles? Not partners. No, you stay with the same partner. You should have done. All right. Well, you'll do on the next one anyways. So let's just recap very quickly. You'll start with a chit-chat, just for a few seconds to set the scene. Then you'll switch on, your hypnotist will switch on the H+. Then you'll go to more hypnotic chit-chat. And as part of that hypnotic chit-chat, you're looking for formal yeses, things where they actually say, yes. That's right. You'll have a minute apiece, and after a minute, you'll switch roles, so both of you get a chance to do that. Just listen out for when I invite you to switch roles. You guys ready for this? All right. That was a crude one. Off you go. Was that fun? Was that easy? Yeah? Was that a crude yes or a subtle yes? So seeing as you have the crude yes, next time we're going to do the same exercise again. You can get any crude yeses you want, but I want you to focus on subtle yeses. A subtle yes is the one that people will agree with, but you have to really check their body language whether or not they're agreeing with you, right? So, whatever you're saying, as long as they're relatively happy with it, you're okay. So some of you will be happy with that. Some of you may be kind of puzzled about that. That's okay. You can be puzzled. As long as you do the exercise. Are you guys ready to do the exercise now? Yes. Yeah, the idea? So we have subtle yeses, the ones which are just part of the conversation. Of course, you realize this and that and so on. The point is, you're looking for them to not have to voice the agreement. You're looking for them to just agree without realizing it. Get the idea? All right, guys, a minute apiece, off you go. How was that? Was that fun? You guys enjoying yourselves? Good. you appreciating the difference between a subtle and a crude yes, yeah? The reason this is important is if your conversation is yeah, 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 oh no, yeah, yeah, you're likely to trigger a recognition inside them that something's going on, right? If they're like, keep going. Oh, what happened next? Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. There's a very different mindset that happens with that. Do you get the idea? So if you want to keep it conversational, then a lot of your yeses need to be invisible too, right? So what the next one is, and again, something you've already done, but we're just going to drill this in now, is start with a normal chit-chat. H+ switches on somewhere along the line so you can kind of create your hypnotic chit-chat. You'll start collecting your yeses, crude and subtle, I don't mind now, whatever mix comes out. At some point, your partner is going to give you a no. And it can be a random no, it doesn't matter. The content is irrelevant right now, right? As soon as you get a no, just hijack it, as you've done before, and get back to yeses again. Do you understand the exercise? Right? Any questions on that one? No? All right. That's right, you don't have any questions, because you just want to get the exercise going, don't you? All right, I'm going to give you, yeah, this is still pretty easy, so we'll still give it a minute apiece, 2 minutes in total. Off you go. Who's having fun with this? Anyone? Yeah? Good. Who's starting to feel this is starting to get quite practical? It's something you could do actually in your day-to-day life and the kind of place you want to do it. Yeah? Good. By the way, I saw some of you have neglected to get your hypnotic eye lock going on. So remember, when you turn your H+ on, part of what helps you maintain that and intensify that is locking eye contact. Now, when you're using this in regular conversations, you may want to purposely break eye contact in order to diminish the intensity of what you're doing, because it may become too intense in terms of the nature of the interaction you're having. Does that make sense? But then you're doing it on purpose, precisely because you want to avoid going too far. For now, I'd like you to go as far as possible with it, so you know what the outer edge looks like, and coming back from that will be easier. Make sense? Yeah? Can we have a microphone over here, please?
I found it actually a bit of a challenge to maintain H+ when my partner was saying no to me.
Good. I'm serious. That's where you have to, this is the bit we have to learn. There's something going on inside you that doesn't like the no's. Until you know how to handle that, you won't feel comfortable getting yeses. So the whole point of H+ is that the no's become irrelevant. Not irrelevant because they're unimportant because you're going to ignore them, but irrelevant because no matter what's happening, it's just the next step forwards. You see, if you guys are afraid of any kind of no's or rejections or disagreements in your conversations, then you can't solve problems, right? Because you can't get up to the precise areas where people are actually stuck, which means you can't influence them. So for you, next time you do it with your partner, ask them to give you several no's, just to get used to it until you go, I don't care. After all, this is just an exercise, so not exactly like they're saying no to you for real. Right?
Right.
So then it's something you're doing, and whatever that is, you might want to stop it. Right?
Okay.
You're going to pass it back, and then over here, just stand up, and then we'll come to you afterwards. Go ahead.
By establishing eye contact, then breaking it, then establishing it again, then breaking it, will that be a fractionation effect? Super. That's it.
Right behind you, the lady.
I found is that better?
Yeah.
I found the no's were very challenging. So I wanted to persuade the person to say yes to me, but in a very subtle manner that they didn't actually realize they were now agreeing with me.
And what did you
Thank
do?
you. I just kept going at it.
Yeah. Did you hijack their no? In other words,
Sort of, yes.
by
As I
suggesting,
said,
because your idea is absolutely correct, and there's many ways to do it. A simple way, and I'll show you another way for a more harder no in a moment, but the simple way is just start agreeing with them and then moving it in a different direction. Make sense?
fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome. And very quickly here, before we do the next exercise, just stand up, there you go.
I noticed by this lady from when we were talking, the chit-chat, we had very beautiful eye contact, but then when I was putting the H plus in it, she was more drifting in herself.
That's
and
right.
then when she broke the eye contact because she was searching in her own world.
All I can say is, congratulations, that's what it looks like. That's exactly what happens. Remember yesterday we talked about this? When he's trying to find a way of being able to socially, responsibly access a trance state. What did he do? Right? On occasions they'll do, or off in the distance, but very rarely will they keep eye contact. Some people will actually sit there and go, yeah, and totally lose the plot with their head nodding. Yeah. At some point, you might be afraid the head might fall off because it's being overused. But the more typical response when you're getting this right, especially when you're getting the trance rhythms sorted out, is they will look often into the distance, or more typically downwards in the distance, and this will be their response. They might nod and go, yeah. That's pretty much what happens, right? Well done. Just one more thing over here.
See the confidence she's given me.
Mm.
What happens if you're actually bored with the person?
Well, then you haven't got much H+.
Then you would be doing down, around,
right.
up.
That's called H-. All right, guys, let's do the next round of this. This will be something a little bit new, but should be relatively straightforward. So this is for what happens when you can't quite hijack the no because it's too serious or there's too much attached to it. So what we're going to do now is you're going to go through the same cycle to the no. So chit-chat, H+, get some hypnotic chit-chat going, collect some yeses. Someone on the lines, they'll say no to you. When you get the no, just get curious about that and ask them, how come? Or what's that about? What's going on there? Tell me more, right? Get them to give you a little bit of information about what their objection actually is about. Once you get their actual objection, what their reason for saying no, hijack that. You get the idea? And then you get back to the yeses. You'll get what we're doing here? I'm going to give you, because it's going to take a little bit more time to do the chit-chat part, let's double your time on this one. Let's give you 2 minutes apiece. So you have, I know it's crazy, isn't it? Way too much time. But I'll give you time to just fumble around the question for a bit if you need to. All right, guys? Start now. How did that go, folks? How was that fun? Was it interesting? What kind of questions do you ask? What kind of responses do you get? Do you have any difficulties with it at all? Anyone went straightforward? Let me ask you this then. Did anyone here ask the question why? What kind of answers do you get when you ask the question why? Reflective? People are kind of rationalizing it, reasoning it. Let's do it this way. We're going to give you just a minute again for this, and I want you to jump right into the middle of this. So go straight to the yes sets. We'll forget the chit-chat thing for a moment. Yes sets, get a no. What I want you to do is ask why, then see if you can hijack it. Go back to yes sets, get another no, and this time ask something, anything but the question why. So how come, what's that about, tell me more, can you explain that, anything like that. Does that make sense to you guys? And then go back to hijacking and back to yes set, literally just a minute apiece, so you won't have much time to do it. I just want you to contrast how why works versus the other questions. Make sense to you guys? All right, so 1 minute apiece, straight in, off you go. All right, how did that go? Was that interesting? How did the why answers compare to the other kind of questions, the answers to those? What kind of things did you get? So just stand up and we'll get a mic to you.
I think why to how come it make them go more inside, trying to find more answers to ratify it.
So when you ask how come, they're asking getting more answers in terms of what's going on.
It's making them think more.
Making them think more. Good.
To ratify it, it's going deeper inside to ask for answers.
Go on, Zoran.
The I found that when we ask how come, there's more choices for them.
More
When
choices,
we ask why, they're stuck in only this meaning. There's no choices with why.
You guys are very close to the mark here. This is important. Go on.
When I got the answer to the why, I got an answer that I couldn't really do anything with. Actually, I didn't feel anything, and I didn't know how to continue really on that one.
And the other one?
And the other one, I got more emotional response, something that actually connected with me.
How many people had a similar experience in that? Because I guess you guys were saw something similar. Hands up, right? This is general rule of thumb, all right? But especially this is an English thing. I'm not sure how well it translates to other languages. But in English in particular, the question why is usually met with a rationalization. In other words, I'm going to commit to this position, right? Why are you so messed up? Oh, because my childhood, whatever, right? The problem is, why tends to make things more real because you're rationalizing them. It cements them in and holds them together. So as a rule, general rule, there are always exceptions to this. Ask people a why question when they're doing well, right? So, oh yeah, I've overcome that. Really? What are you talking about? Well, I don't feel like that anymore. Why? Oh, I just feel better. Why do you say that? Well, because every time I do it, I just naturally feel better. What are they doing now? They're cementing in reasons for being different. Do you see the idea? You don't want to cement in reasons for being in the problem, though. What how come and other questions like that tend to do is find out what their reasoning behind it was, or what their actual their thought process was. No, I don't believe that. Well, how come? Well, because people who believe that end up getting in trouble doing such and such thing, right? That's something you can work with, versus asking why. Well, because it's wrong. Did you hear the difference? Right? I'm overemphasizing it a little bit. These are tendencies, but it's a strong enough tendency that you want to be careful about when you ask why and when you ask something different. Make sense to you guys? Go ahead.
Why feels more in your face and demanding than
how come. That's the nature of our culture. We tend to use why, usually with a gesture that involves a finger. Why? Why are you doing this wrong thing, right? Why often has to do with blame, right? Of course, when you were young, you never heard something like this. Why can't you do what I tell you? Why can't you get something simple like your homework done? Why are you always making such a mess? Why are you always late? You get the kind of ideas here? There's basically a lot of blame thing going on there, which of course adds another negative thing, so people feel they have to be defensive, which is another reason why they get more locked into it, because now they're defending a position, which means they're committed to it. Do you get the idea? Again, these are general tendencies. These are not absolute experiences, but they're strong enough that you will be careful of when and where you ask questions like that. Is it making sense to you guys? Yeah? Who found it more natural hijacking the answer to something like how come, then going straight to hijacking the no? Hands up. There are times when hijacking the no is just simple, right? In classical hypnosis, of course, or external hypnosis, the classic one is, and that right arm's going to lift. That's right. I want that right arm to stay right there, comfortably nestled on your lap, right? That's a very simple way of hijacking it. In regular conversations, you can get away with that in certain circumstances when there are looser objections. But when there's something meaty behind it, a real reason, a real experience, a real objection, then you need to uncover that first before you can kind of destroy the objection. You can hijack it and then move on from that. Does that make sense to you guys? There's many ways to demolish objections. This is just one of them. It's a simple one, but it's not the only one. And I'm just offering it to you so you have some fluency. It should hopefully also help you to stay in H+ when you do get a no, because then all you're doing is finding out information. And that information is going to lead you to a yes, because there'll be something within that information that they can that you can agree with quite happily. Do you see what I mean? Yeah? Any questions on that? All right, so the next round, I'm going to give you 2 minutes apiece again. Is that? Off you go. What? Huh? So, you're going to start off the same way. You're going to start with chit-chat. At some point, you're going to switch on your H+, and you go to a more hypnotic kind of conversation. Same thing you've done before, right? Then you're going to start collecting your your yeses, rather. At some point, and this is going to be the interesting part for you guys, your partner may or may not say no to you. They may or may not say no at any point. If they do say no, you default into your hijacking process, whether you're asking a question or not. It doesn't matter. It depends on what seems natural. If they don't say no, well, there's nothing to hijack. You just keep collecting your yeses. Make sense? The thing I want you to weave into this as well is your language softeners and your power words. You've already been using them. I can hear you in terms of your exercise. You've been using them naturally anyways. So now I just want to emphasize that a little bit more. Language softeners, perhaps, maybe, possibly. Power words, because, and, therefore, and so, which means, etc. You get the idea? So we're just going to be loading it up with our language. Any questions on this? Is that pretty straightforward? Yes? So in that case, let's just add one little thing to make it more interesting, shall we? I'd like for you to start your chit-chat on the topic of how confident they will be when they go home using hypnosis in their daily life. Wouldn't that be an interesting chit-chat to have? Yeah, just see what happens. Off you go. So how'd that go? Is that interesting? Who's starting to feel there's some juju happening in the room? Huh? Who's finding their hypnotist is actually pretty engaging? They're kind of like, wow, I'm kind of like listening to this guy. Do you have any questions before we move on to the next step? You will be. You will be doing it again. You have a question? Okay, just go on. Just go ahead.
I was asked if I will use all the techniques I used here. Will I use those all the techniques I learned here in the normal life? And there was this shot in my head, like all, yes.
Good. Over here quickly. Yeah.
It's just an observation I've noticed. No matter how hard I try, I cannot get a no. And I'm deliberately going completely off the wall to try and get one, and it's just not coming. I'm getting agreement all the way through.
I guess you'll have to look forward to going home again and actually going with real people and say, come on, people.
Yeah.
Stop me. Somebody stop me.
Yeah, it's
unstoppable.
It's bizarre. Thank you.
It's good. All right, guys. Oh, very quickly.
Just a quick comment. I mean, the thing about this now is it's starting to become... Sorry, it's starting to become fun. We're actually enjoying these exercises, which I think probably means we're getting better at them and relaxing.
I think you're starting to really get the gist of these things, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, that's the whole idea of this. So notice we're not doing anything really particularly new, except for we added that little how part into the equation. But really, we're just recapping all the stuff you've already done and drilling it in. Notice how much simpler it seems now compared to a few days ago. Doesn't it seem like, oh yeah, straightforward, really, no big deal? It's because you both have options and unconscious learnings. Isn't that interesting? All right, so the next one, very simple, same as you did before, chit-chat, H+, hypnotic chit-chat. Yeses, possibly a no if they come up or not, doesn't matter. Language softener and power words, just as you did in the last exercise. Now just add in lots of trance themes around confidence and using hypnosis. Ooh. It's pretty much what you did already. You're just going to emphasize the trance theme element and how they will feel, apart from being confident, as a result of being able to have all these skills. Get the idea? Off you go. You guys seem to be having a good time with that. Getting easier, isn't it? But just think about how much stuff you're doing. You're having chit-chat, you've got different styles of H+ to switch on inside yourself, you're making eye contact, you're using language softener, power words, trance themes. You're collecting all kinds of different yeses. You're prepared for a no to turn it around and hijack it. That's a lot of stuff that you're doing, isn't it? Doesn't it seem easy? Let's add another one, which you're already doing anyway, so we're just going to formalize it. So all this here is the same as you did a moment ago, right? The only extra bit we're going to add is the piggyback principle, right? Move them towards a more improbable idea around the idea of being confident using this stuff than where you started from. Move them towards a more improbable idea of confidence than you would have started from. So you'll start off with little things that they're more likely to agree with, then you'll go towards plausible things that they can go, yeah, I'll probably be confident there, and you can end up with absolutely improbable things that normally say no to, but today it seems like, yeah, you know what, you're right. I don't know why you're right, but you're right. Do you get the idea? Again, 2 minutes apiece, focus on the piggyback side of things, but of course, everything else still counts. Off you go. So, how did that go? Stand up a second, go ahead. Other side.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say that in the last few exercises, I've had to make no conscious decision whatsoever in obtaining H+. I've just started talking and it just appears.
That's kind of how it's supposed to happen, right? If you have to make too much of an effort, then it won't happen because you have to actually think about it, and by the time you've done it, it's like, oh, where's he gone?
Yeah. So one of your algebra is missing now. H is missing. I don't have to worry about it in that.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Very quickly over here, and then we'll do the last few pieces before lunch.
And I don't have even to think about adding what you said to add, because it's, oh, okay, and we start to speak each other, and it's going outside from me, just like that. Before a few of the 3 or 4 exercises before, I was afraid, oh, if I'm able to add this, and add this, and add this, and now it's just flowing.
Perfect. You see, what you guys are beginning to discover is another little secret, which is when you're in the hypnosis room, your conscious mind does have an involvement, a purpose. Your job is to merely intend an outcome, and your unconscious mind's job is to select the correct tools and the correct sequence to make that happen. Does that make sense? So if you have to think about what to do, you're missing the point. If you're busy doing stuff, and you think, you know what, this is going down the wrong path, I need them to agree with me a little bit more, and suddenly, off you go down the path of hijacking, or asking questions, or whatever. Do you get the idea? So the tools you've been developing over the last 2 days, you're now actually using much more fluidly, and you'll actually enjoy, before the lunch break, we'll have one more little version of this I think you'll enjoy. Before we go down that road, though, I'd like for you to add one more piece to your language, which is going to be useful to you. Now, I'm going to present this to you in a way that's harsh, because it allows you to really sense the contrast more clearly. Is that okay with you guys? So I warn you, I'm going to present to you an idea that's unpleasant, because it's going to help you to make a contrast, if that's okay with you guys. What is the difference between these 2 ideas or statements? The baby burnt to death. The infant perished in the flames. What's the difference? Is there any difference in information, for starters? No. It's the same. The emotion has changed, hasn't it? The impact has changed, hasn't it? Your reaction to it has changed, hasn't it? I have more leverage with one than the other, depending on which situation I need to, what kind of reaction I need to have out of you. Would that be fair to say? What is different in my language between the 2? How what? How blunt I am. Well, I'm pretty blunt with both of them. I've described the scene, infant perishing in flames. That's pretty direct. Say again? So they're saying that there's words that are common to most people. Emotive words. You guys are all right. Let me present it to you this way, the idea this way. I call the first style of words hot words because they're emotive, because they have a lot of emotional energy, they're very charged and very loaded. What makes them so loaded? Think of it this way. Who uses a word like infant? A 5-year-old or a 50-year-old? Who's more likely to use it? A 50-year-old, right? Who will use a word like baby? A 5-year-old or a 50-year-old? A 5-year-old, actually both of them, right? So hot words tend to be those words you learnt earliest. And as a result, two things have happened. The first thing is that a word is just a sound. It means nothing until you've associated meanings to it. Does that make sense? You've had longer to associate meanings to the word baby than to the word infant. So there's just a lot of bigger history there. Secondly, as a rule, children tend to feel more intensely than adults. We kind of have emotional shields that we build up as we grow up. It's not always the case, but as a rule, children feel more intensely than adults, which means the associations they make to words at that age tend to be more intense also. Does that make sense to you guys? Number 3, we tend to emphasize the emotional aspects because of the first 2 reasons. We will unconsciously select words like baby when talking to each other when we want to evoke an emotion. And we'll unconsciously use words like infant when we are wishing to protect ourselves from an emotion. There are certain professions that specialize in this. Let's look at the medical profession, for example. Do they take a knife, stab it in someone's chest, and cut him open? Essentially, they do, don't they? A surgeon, right? A surgeon gets a saw and just cuts right into and just, breaks up and gets, sometimes they get a hammer and chip away at the old breastplate, or yanks it open. Think about the image I've left inside your mind right now, right? As opposed to a skilled surgeon making an incision with a scalpel or using a surgical instrument to spread the chest cavity, right? You feel very different to both types of language, don't you? So hopefully this makes you very sensitive to the idea of language. The one I want you to be I want to get particularly sensitive to and start using now is this idea of hot words. Where are you most likely to find hot words in our country, in this country, or actually in America, it'll be even better source for it. I'll give you in a minute. The tabloid press, right? In particular, the lower end of the tabloid, the better, right? Here in the UK, we used to have a great, there was a great 80s headline, Freddie Starr ate my hamster. Do you remember that one? Say again? In a bar with drunk people, you may well get that. Although, not necessarily the nicest way of mining for hot words. Children's books is another one, right? Because they're written with a vocabulary designed for that younger age group. In the States, and you can get them actually here as well, there's a magazine tabloid thing called The National Enquirer that is full, in fact, that it only uses hot words. And that's why it's actually one of the highest circulations, because it's easy to read. As a rule, if it's easy to read, it's written in hot words. That's why books written for younger audiences tend to have a simpler vocabulary. I believe the guy who wrote Dr. Seuss, who wrote The Cat in the Hat, he wrote it because he had a challenge with his editor to write a book using only 150 words. Only 150 words are used to write the entire story. There's another one, I forget which one it's called now, a follow-up, which he wrote on the challenge that he couldn't write a whole book using only 50 words. And he did. So I want you to think about hot words like baby, words like love, words like want versus desire, right? Kids say, I want this. Then they say, oh, mother, I desire. Another thing to play with, Some kids do, but not most. So you get the idea of hot words? So for the next exercise, I'm going to abbreviate this. C to B basically means everything from chit-chat to H+, to hypnotic chit-chat, to getting your yes sets, getting a few no's if they come up, to your language softeners, your power words, your trance themes, and finally your piggyback, which is what the B stands for. So all this is encapsulated in our C to B. We'll forget A for now. And then I want you to focus on filling in this, your 2 minutes, which has as many hot words as you can come up with. Now, some of you are going like, oh, what do I do now? Hands up if you just got to that position. Yeah, I understand that. May I give you a secret Jedi mind trick that will make this easy for you? Yes? There's about 4 people said yes. The rest of you can just do the exercise and they'll come up and I'll give it to them. The secret to this is your personal trance theme. The more emotion you can generate with that, the more naturally you will select a vocabulary that will match it. Does it make sense? The other version of this is, imagine there's 2 people sitting in front of you in their chair. There's an adult person who's there, except there's a couple of kids here I noticed, so in which case there isn't. There's the adult person in the chair. And if you look deep enough inside of them, you'll see a little 5-year-old boy or girl there. Talk to that one. And you'll find your vocabulary automatically adjusting, right? Note, I don't mean you to take a little baby talk like this. You can go deeper and deeper into trance now. Oh, good. That would be 1 year and below. We're looking for an age range of like 5 to 10 years. Do you get the idea? Do you understand the exercise? All right, guys, 2 minutes apiece. Off you go. Did you enjoy that? Do you notice how the emotion spikes more when you change your language like that, right? And it's useful to be able to cycle between different language styles. But I find particularly the personal trance themes, when you get very emotional, your language changes. And the other one, of course, imagining the child version inside them is a very useful one too. In particular, when current thinking at least assumes that the reasoning levels of the unconscious mind is roughly that of a 7-year-old child, which is when critical factor type thinking starts forming, right? So the final exercise, before we do the final exercise, is very simple. Everything we've done so far, including the hot words, just throw in a revivification, all in 2 minutes, each. Are you ready for it? Good. Off you go. Let's have the mic ready, please. How's that, folks? Interesting? Good? What have you learned from this session? All right, let me ask this way. Have you learned anything from this session? Go ahead. I'll stand up and we'll get a mic to you.
I just want to say thank you, really, because for me it's a little bit like jazz or jamming, of just knowing you have, all the pieces, and new stuff comes up, ideas, metaphors, stories naturally flow in amongst the other components. So really enjoyed it both, giving it, and particularly Chris did a great job being on the receiving end. It's like being in a mind spa for
Isn't
the weekend.
It?
Wonderful.
It's awesome. Awesome. Good job. Well done. Yeah, give him a round of applause. Stand up.
Yeah, it's getting really easy to do everything. And I think
Is anyone else finding it very easy to start doing this stuff? You're not even thinking about it anymore, are you? You're just having a chat. Your intention switches on your H+, your hypnotic room suddenly starts filtering in all these little tools, and you just do what's appropriate given the conversation and where it's at, right?
we started on a conversation and everything is just slides in like in numbers by
Perfect.
itself. So
Perfect.
we're becoming a couple of more Bruce Lees around here. Careful.
I look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In the back of the room.
Yeah, I was thinking about what I learned, and Kieran's metaphor of unjamming was just great, because you know what I got is if you're trying to get through to somebody, you can force it through like dynamite on a log jam, or you can just start pulling pieces apart and try and get in a different way and let the river flow and take it through.
I think that's a great metaphor right there. Yeah. Why put the effort in of trying to move the whole log jam at once when you can just let it dissolve bit by bit? Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? In that case, I think it's time for lunch. It's now coming up to 12:30, so let's be back here at 1. We'll start at 5 to 2, so you can be here at about 1:45, 10 to 2.